Hello and welcome back to another episode in our Stealth AI series. Currently we're working on our prone movement in our character, and the reason why we're working so hard on prone is because that's going to be quite pivotal to our stealth and reacting to our AI's perception of you when you are in prone mode. So previously we've gone into animation mode for prone, but now we're going to work on the movement. So at the moment movement is pretty much the same as it was before. We're just going to change the speed and the animation to match. So let's get started with that. So first thing we need to go to is our animation blueprint. On the event graph of the animation blueprint, we need to get some information from our pawn, such as their movement. So we're going to try get pawn owner. This should be here by default. If not, just add it in and take the return value and do an is valid node. And you want the one with the question mark. That'll be plugged into the blueprint update animation. And if it is valid, that's only going to happen when it detects that there's an animation pawn to be animated. And we're going to take the is valid here and check whether try get pawn owner is what it says it is. So the easy way of doing that is taking the return value from there and casting to our third person character. And we're only going to do this if this value is no longer is not valid anymore. So when we've done the cast, drag out from as third person character and promote to variable. And this will be a reference to the player character. So just call it player character. And we'll drag that out again, choose get and right click on it and choose convert to validate get. This will be plugged into the is valid here. And we want the is not valid to go into the cast third person character. So I'm going to pull that down here like so. And pull that down here, like so. So we're going to get the player character. If it's not valid, we're then going to cast a third person character and store it as a reference. That means the next time it goes through here, this is going to be valid and it can carry on doing its thing. So once it's got that, we need to get a few things from it. Now, at the moment, the most basic stuff we'll need is speed and direction. So let's just worry about that first of all. And so let's just get the player character here, get the movement component. And from the movement component, we want to get the velocity. And the velocity will have a length to it. That length refers to its speed. So do length, do vector length. And we're going to store that into our speed here. Okay, so once we've done the speed, we then want to get the prone speed. Now the prone speed is a bit different because if we go into our prone movement blend space that we've done previously, you see we've got -1 and 1 to go forward and backwards. So we need to convert whatever information we're getting from the player character and use it for this. Okay, so the way we're going to do that is using the scale axis that we get from the player character. So if I go to my player character, I'll show you what I mean. So when we move the player character, movement input, we've got move forward. And move forward gives us an axis value, which is its scale. So I'm going to take this axis value and store that as a variable in here. So on the move forward here, I'm going to make a new variable. And we'll call this one movement axis. And change that to a float. And just set that in between the move forward there and there. So now we've got a link we can use to plug into our prone. So if I go into my player animation, get the player character, and then from there I can now get their movement axis. And I'm going to set that into prone speed. So if I hit compile now and go back to my animation graph, you can see here I've got the prone movement blend space with prone speed plugged in. We've done that last time, so that should be there. Hit close that, hit play, go into prone, and now when I push forward and backward, we get different animations. Now notice when I push backwards, I'm actually turning the character around. What I don't want to do is that. I want to make it so it stays facing the same direction, but the S won't rotate it to move around. Now the reason why it's doing that is because there's a setting on the character movement component which tells it to rotate based on which way it's moving. So when it's in prone, I want to change that to not be the case. So I'm going to go into my not player character. Let's go. Actually, let's go into player character. Be fine. On the player character, when we find our prone, go prone function. When we do go prone, we're going to take our character movement component and set rotate. Set orient rotation to movement. And I'm going to set that to that be on the complete rather. Sorry, I'm going to set that to be false. Then on stand up, I'm going to copy that and put that on the end of stand up as well, and make that true again. So now when I push play, we should go into prone, and now moving backwards, moving forwards. Now the speed isn't great because the speed thinks it's in crouch mode. So what I'm going to do is change that on our prone and stand up functions. To change the speed, we're going to drag from character movement and do set max walk speed crouched. And we're going to change that to 200 here. What's it by default? Let's have a look. Max walk speed crouched, 300. Let's make that 150. So it's a lot slower. Then here we go, set max walk speed crouched to 300 again. Test that out. Go into prone. There you go. That feels a lot better. So at the moment you can see it does that sort of snap. It goes from one to the other in harshly. That's because we're not lerping between the two values. It's either -1 or 0. Okay, it's quite a digital input. So what we're going to do here is we'll tweak that so it is now going to interp between each value. So we're going to go into our animation blueprint. Go to the event graph, and we're going to take this maximum movement axis. Sorry, can't talk today. We're going to take this and we're going to do this on a F interp 2. And the movement axis is going to be the target. So plug that into target. The return value from this is going to go to the prone speed. The current is going to be the current prone speed. So get prone speed, plug into current. Delta time, you drag out and do delta. Get while delta seconds. And interp speed we'll do 5 to start off with. Hit compile. And go into prone. And now they'll slowly transition into each one. It'll blend between them. Okay, so the next issue we got is that when I'm moving, if I were to turn the mouse, it's going to move in the direction of the mouse, which again is not what we want. We want it to only move in the direction that we are moving. If I hold down D and A, you see them moving to left and right, which is fine. We're going to do an animation for that at some point. That's what we're going to have eventually to do that. Or we can make them rotate. It's up to you, really. We'll see what feels best. But we need to get rid of this movement by mouse. That's key. So let's turn that off. So on the character blueprint, I'm going to go, and the reason that uses that is because over here we're using on the movement input get control rotation, getting the vectors that way. Instead of doing that, what we're going to do instead is do a based on the prone, whether it'll do this or the actor's current rotation. So I'm going to move that up here. Just make a little bit of space. Like so. Drag is prone out and do a select rotator. And the select rotator is going to pick A when is prone is true. Otherwise it'll pick B. So this is for the B path here. So I'm going to disconnect that and plug that into B. Move that down and hook those into our return values here. And the A is going to be just the actor's rotation. So get actor rotation. So now when we are in prone, it's going to ignore the mouse control rotation and just move wherever I push. So notice I'm moving my mouse, and it still goes forward. And there we have it. And we now have our animation for our prone going forward and backward inside a prone movement. And in the next episode, we're going to work on the collision of the prone mesh. So for example, the problem that you have with characters by default is that you can clip through environments. Now the reason why that happens is because the character type of class uses just a capsule that comes with it. It can't be overwritten by anything else, so you can't put any other collisions onto it. So how do we solve that? Find out in the next episode over on patreon.com/RyanLady right now, where you can find it just for $1, along with all my other videos that you get access to for much earlier than anyone else on YouTube. Big thank you to all of my patrons for their continued support, as none of this would be possible without them, so thank you again so much. If you're watching this and you haven't yet subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye everyone.